for most people, that one is going to be the most difficult to understand, and that's
Yeah,
sadism, or
sadism.
essentially taking pleasure and delight of other people's suffering. So, what do we know about sadism?
That was very hard to get at. In fact, I was reluctant to have that be the fourth root. I wasn't sure it existed, and I learned, on the sexual thing, which is different with the sadomasochism. There are a lot more people who want to be the submissive than the dominant. They have clubs for those people who want to play these games together, but there's always a surplus of submissives. So even there seems to be a shortage, and a lot of the people who do become dominant are sort of converted. They started out as submissives and then moved on. Um, so I wondered how common it was. There are very few people who admit to having pleasure themselves, but I kept coming across accounts where somebody wrote about taking part in some mass murder campaign, and he said, "Well, it was hard on me, but I did see a couple of the others seem to enjoy it, and they talked about it or even admitted it was starting to be satisfying." There were enough of those, so I concluded that is real. It's not a big source in terms of the high body count. That goes more with the threatened egotism or the means to an end, or the especially the idealistic evil. But of course, if you're the victim of a sadist, it's much the worse for you because they want to enjoy your suffering. I mean, if they just want your money, they might beat you up to get your money, but you give them your money, then they're done. They don't need to beat you up anymore. But if they're getting pleasure from beating you up, you can give them your money, you can give them anything, they'll still want to beat you up and carry it to an extreme. So it's worse for the victim. And my sense is it's a bit derivative of the others. It's something that develops slowly. You don't usually start out that way,
Mm-hmm.
but gradually over time you become desensitized. There's this theory in psychology called the opponent process theory, and I adapted that to explain sadism. The opponent process is how your body maintains its homeostasis, its equilibrium. So let's say if you're out of shape, you run up a flight of stairs, and then your heart will start beating faster. Well, it doesn't go on beating faster for the rest of your life. There's processes that speed it up, and then after a while, there are other processes that slow it back down to get back to normal. So um, when and over time, as you continue to run up the stairs, if you did it every day, the the speeding up will gradually get weaker, and the opponent process that calms down again will happen faster. So the first time you run up two flights of stairs, you might be breathing hard for 10 minutes. But after you've been doing it a lot and you're in shape, you might breathe hard for half a minute or something, but pretty fast it restores. So the restoring process gets better. It's how, for example, why do people like bungee jumping? Falling is one of the
Mm-hmm.
most basic fears in the mind. It's extremely natural. But so you fall, you have this moment of terror, and then to get rid of the terror, the body releases positive chemicals, and so you have some positive emotion that gradually restores it. And as you continue to go bungee jumping, again, the moment of terror will reduce, will get shorter, and the bliss gets longer. So it becomes more and more fun and satisfying. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of what maybe happens with sadism. The initial reaction to hurting someone, killing someone, is really negative. Again, it goes against the grain to do that. But at some point, the body provides positive feelings to help you get over it. Um, and if you do it a fair amount, if you kill a bunch of people, then gradually the initial horror and disgust that go with it will diminish, and the pleasure that comes later will become more intense, and then you might actually feel it. And I'd say further, most people have enough of a conscience that they wouldn't allow themselves to acknowledge that they enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
even if this might be a natural thing. But people with a weaker sense of guilt or whatever, they might not be deterred by that. Or people who really do see their victims as less than human, as another lower form of humanity, so it's really not a problem. They might allow themselves to enjoy it. So that you would get about what you get is that a lot of people participate in violence, but only a few come to really enjoy it, and it usually looks like something they learned over time. I remember
Yeah.
reading about the mass murderers. I read all kinds of terrible things, and that not the mass murderers, the serial killers. The FBI has tracked these, and there are several books they've written about them. And often, this is somebody, it's usually a man, who has worked out this fantasy of what it would be like to kill someone. And it becomes a very compelling dream. And so finally he does it. And the reality is very different from how he imagined it. And it's disgusting. And he feels awful about it and sick. And so he's killed somebody. But he goes home really shaken, and he says, I'm not going to do that again. So there's a strong negative reaction the first time, but in some cases after a while he says, well, maybe it was bad because I didn't do it just right. So I got to try it again and do it better, and it'll be better this time. And he tries a few times, and then starts to get that desensitization, or that reduced initial reaction, the reduced disgust, and starts to feel the pleasure and satisfaction afterwards. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
leads a few of them to go on and kill multiple people over time. But the first reaction is usually, even for them, quite negative, at least from the
Yeah.
memoirs we have and the interviews.